Welcome to another Flux interview. Got a cracker for you tonight. Kevin, who's coming on in a while. Once I've got a bit of housekeeping out of the way, he's I've known him quite some time. Actually, we've done some exhibitions together. First met in an exhibition in the Truman Brewery quite a few years ago, and always been a bit of a fan of his works. Really intricate, really clever stuff. So we'll get to that in a bit. Before we do, let's just go through the things that are coming up. Already explained every week, actually, probably right up to the exhibition. We've got Flux 2025 in May 15th to 18th. There will be a link at some point where you can get tickets to the private view. And I will be publicising that once it's up and running. But at the moment, submissions are open, and I believe that Lisa is working her way through the artists that have applied for that. And by the same vein, there is also the Collectible Club, and I will be putting a link in the video underneath to that as well. It's where you can actually enter to win a fabulous piece of artwork from all the different artists that are available through that. And of course, Flux Review. Lisa at the moment is working on edition 12. It's jam-packed with interviews, jam-packed with information. It's a fabulous magazine. There are hardback copies available as well. Limited edition, I have to say. And again, you can find out all about that on the Flux Review website. So you can easily, if you go on to here, thefluxreview.com, that's the website for that. g-n-p.co.uk is my website where you can check out what I've been up to as well. And then that leads me on to the last thing, really, is next week's guest, which is actually Glyn Jewis. And I've known Glyn a long time. He actually interviewed me live on his YouTube channel last March, and I'm going to be turning the tables on him next week and talking about all the work that he does. He's a photographer, an educator, and an amazing artist. Actually, he probably doesn't see himself as an artist, but he definitely is. The work that he creates is just quite astounding. So that's sort of the next few weeks, and there's one other person that will be coming after Glyn as well. Just got to confirm that, and I will probably speak about that next week. So tonight's guest, well, as I've said, I've known him quite some time, and what I've done really just to introduce his work, give you a flavour of what this artist does, which is quite spectacular, very surreal, and properly worth getting to know. As usual, I have created a video that shows the work off. Huge amount of emotion in Kevin's work, so let's bring him in and see if he's emotional. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Gary. Yeah, thanks for that welcome.
Yeah, good. How you doing? Okay.
I feel a bit emotional now after watching
Yeah.
that video.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Thank you.
something that we've sort of spoken about is, and when we've been talking as well, and when I've seen you at exhibitions, is the fact that there's a huge amount of emotion in your work. And what I'd like to do really is just ask you, um, where does that come from? Where did you start? Where did you start getting into art? Because people coming from different directions. Last week, artist, it was music, went into art. What drove you? Did you do it at school? Is this something that you've always been interested in, or did you come to it later in life? I've never asked you those questions, so now's the time.
Blimey, you're nosy, eh? Well, yeah. I have a long story. So if you've got time, I'll tell you a bit of it. So my love with art and my story with art begins when I was a kid. It goes right back to the very beginning. And I always, back in the day, like most kids, I always scribbled, draw, crayons, pencils, and that sort of stuff, and kind of had a little bit of a talent for it back in those days. In comparison to some of the other kids that were around. There's probably in my class of whatever 26 or 30 kids, there's probably two or three of us that seem to have see the world slightly different from everyone else and have that creative side to us. But then when I was about 12, when I was 12, when I've moved from primary school into secondary school, I developed Tourette's, not the vocal tics, but physical tics, and it's quite severe. So I had, and for a while, I kind of thought I had asthma. So we're talking sort of early 80s here. I thought I had asthma, so I was treated for asthma for a while, and then beyond that, I got a doctor called Wendy Whitaker. She was amazing. She was a GP. And I have a lot to thank her for, because she was the first person to sort of sit me down and sort of say, "You've not got asthma, Kevin. You've got, it's got anxiety related illness called Tourette's, or tics, she called it. Sorry, not Tourette's. Tourette's is more of an American term, but tics. But the art was always a bit of escapism from that kind of. It developed more in those years, my teenage years. And then so then when I kind of left school, or left education, I kind of and got a bit of a job, and I could afford to invest in better materials and paints and stuff. So I kind of developed it further from there. But I missed a lot of school. I just got a lot of time. So certainly from the age of 12, when I first got diagnosed, for about a year and a half, 18 months or so, I never went into school. I was homeschooled for a while. And that was because of my tics. And then I'd say so. The drawing and the sketching always helped. So when I was left alone and to my own devices, and I could just escape everything I was going through, just going deeper and deeper into this little world of imagination and creativity.
So when did you actually start properly, if you like? Not quite the correct word, I guess, but when did you go, you know what, I'm going to be a full-time artist? Or when did you actually get to the point where you could say, I was going to be a full-time artist? And if you didn't get to the point, what were you doing to subsidize your, we've all got to live, we've all got mortgages and bills to pay. So, you can't, people seem to think that there's some people that could just go, I'm going to be an artist tomorrow, and suddenly do it without all that big build up, all that PR you've got to have, and big following to sell your work to. So at what point did you get to where you went, okay, I'm now think I can actually crack on with this properly?
Yeah, so that's a big question. Good question.
I'm full of them.
Yeah. Thanks. So when I left school, I knew I wanted to be an artist. I knew I wanted to do something creative for kind of as a line in the sand. And I remember having a kind of a discussion with my school careers advisor, and then sort of my parents and stuff. And my dad was well, I come from a large Irish family, so it was all about the trades. I mean, about going out and having that security of an income and the core values in life, which is great. And that sort of upbringing. My parents are amazing. But what it did do, it hindered you a little bit. Certainly, for someone like myself. So I remember kind of feeling that, well, as a kind of balance between, my dad wanted me to go out and be a chippy or a plumber or a brickie or something, and going to the building sites. I became a draftsman, like a fire protection engineer.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where I started from. So it was lots of straight line circles and loads of maths.
Yeah.
There was loads of that. So I'd done an apprenticeship when I was 16. I went in straight into that side of it, and then I kind of went down the whole career path. However, there was always the tics. And the tics kind of developed into anxiety into my late teens and 20s, and that was severe anxiety attacks. So I started developing then. So it's like, I if I was going to the pub in the evening, I'd get to the door of the pub and just break out in a sweat. The whole world would come crashing in on me and out and stuff. My hands would be shaking, my beads of sweat coming. And so there was that whole side of it. But so I kind of confronted it. I sort of went full into the whole hard, working life, and started getting incomes and trying to build my bank balance and make it a bit more better than what it has been in the past, sort of thing. But the art really was kind of took a back seat, and it was always a hole in my life and a space in my life that I knew was kind of there, always there. It was lingering around me and looming over me. And I didn't really return to art. Well, proper art, I guess. I mean, really creating oil paintings and stuff, large, until I was probably in my 30s. And I was doing it for a long time in the background, alongside my career and stuff. And I was painting and creating stuff, and then and never quite thinking, because I never went to art school. I was never formally trained. I kind of doubted my talent or my skills, and I kind of thought to myself, well, I haven't got art school training. Who's going to want to buy my art? All these doubts were starting to come into my head. And there's only 3 people that I knew that are close to me, colleagues at work that, they say, oh, what are you doing tonight? I said, I'll be doing a bit of artwork. Oh, you doing paint? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and let me see some of you. You've got any pictures? And you show them a few photographs. Or my family were always very supportive of my creativity. And then, so through people and friendships and people that are close to me kind of tried, and they were constantly on at me to, tell me I need to get it out there. You need to get your work out there, Kev. Come on, what are you doing holding it away and hiding it away from everyone? Just get it out. So I did. I started doing, so into my kind of 30s, kind of mid 30s, I guess, I started showing in like pubs and stuff. Just hire a room in a pub or stick a few paintings on a wall of landlords and people I know. My brother was in the trade as well, so he knew, people that could, that in pubs around a place that would happily give me a bit of space. So the more I started getting it out there, the more confidence it started building within me. And then the deeper I went down the rabbit hole with regards to the stuff I was creating, and the size and scale of the stuff I was creating.
And that's, I know, as you say, no formal trainer. I really don't think that's as big an issue as some people make it out to be. I think what's more important is, especially with art, is does somebody like it or not? And if they like it, they'll buy it. And they're not going to not buy it. If they really love it, they're not going to not buy it because they go, oh, hold on a minute, it's not had any formal training. I think that's, you either like it or you don't. It's quite an interesting.
It is. I think it also goes.
To talk about.
It also goes into the reasons why you create and who you're creating for. So the type of artist I wanted to be was, bearing in mind that my art, my creative, is all born from, or therapy, for want of a better phrase. I kind of it was an outlet from my tics and my anxiety, and then later in life depression and stuff, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I had this whole long road of the past, well, since I was 12. So what's that, 40, 42 years?
You're 50. You're over 50.
No, don't tell
No, over 40.
It's lucky this ain't live, isn't it? Really, you know. So yeah. So this long road of, kind of stemming straight, going at the core of it, that tics and Tourette's, and then kind of the anxiety, so everything was born from, at the very core, therapy and escapism from what I was going through. But it also, cyclically and in full circle, it's become my inspiration, and in terms of what I create.
So what's interesting is you get quite a lot of people, and there's quite a lot of artists that I've interviewed who have, things have come up with them where someone said, oh, you need to find your style, you need to this. You've got a style that everybody is going to know it's you. And that's really one of those, I think it's one of those important things that if someone looks at it, they'll go straight away, that's yours. In the same way that you can look at a Leonardo da Vinci picture and know it's him. You can look at a Caravaggio or a Vermeer and know it's them. You know that is that artist. There's quite a lot of art these days which is quite similar, and so that you could actually look at one piece and think, oh, is that somebody else? That's not going to happen with yours, because I've never seen anybody else doing anything like it, and I think that's what makes it completely unique.
Yeah, it is. I think it has. I sometimes I feel that it's great, because I do get people who see my work and they sort of say, I've seen a piece of your work down in so and so place, and I knew it was one of yours straight. You can definitely tell that it's your. Yeah. So that style is nice to be recognised for. But also, I don't think it kind of. I'm not sure if it fits into a certain like genre or category. It's kind of, so in terms of, finding a gallery that I can hang it and it will kind of be blended, but it kind of stands out a little bit. So, I think sometimes people are, a little bit scared of stuff they kind of are as unknown and not familiar to them.
They are, but I think that also leads to the fact that absolutely you've got to keep having solo shows, mate. It's like, and it doesn't really. I think the fact, if your work is unique, it's going to stand out. People are going to remember it. It's going to be a real, really important part of what you do, is the fact that you have got this style. I'm just going to put you full screen while I read from my other screen a bit of your artist statement. We had a chat about artist statements before we came on, and it's a very important part of what we all do to have a really good artist statement. But there are some that are overly pretentious, and I think I'm just going to read a section of it, but it paints a very good picture, and it's very real rather than a lot of airy fairy stuff. And I think it's quite important that you stay that way, because your work is so unique. So I'm just going to well, you'll be full screen, so don't pull too many faces when I'm reading. So I'll read it from the other screen anyway. Okay. So it says, I paint because it allows me to tell my story, because it's great therapy, and I just simply love doing it. My story is one of Tourette's, anxiety, mental health, love, laughter, loss, anger, fear, lots of highs, lots of lows, and it's still being written. Every day my art tells a little more sunshine into my life, lets a little bit more sunshine into my life, sorry. And this is a bit, I think, each chapter of my life has various memories of short stories and pictures. I record these memories by sketching, taking photographs, writing, and I use these to form an image in my mind. The art is a reflection of the many emotions I feel or have felt about myself and my life. Now, that last bit in particular will now lead me to bring up couple of pictures. And I did say to you I wanted to talk about this before because I find this fascinating, these, and they are on your website. We'll talk about your website a bit later, but and people saw these at the end of the video that I just brought up. So here we have a shot of you, but you've then turned this into a painting. So just talk me through what emotion is going through you when you're basically, this is what you're painting from the picture that we've just seen.
So yeah, so my kind of in my bio there, I sort of say about my process being I take photographs. So if I experience something or have experienced something, which is probably more important, really. And wherever I am, I could be out shopping, I could be sitting at home, I could be watching telly, reading a book, whatever it might be. And the way my head works is that a memory will flash into my head, and alongside that memory, I'll feel a certain way. Probably same for most people when they capture a memory. And what that does for me is that I then kind of start trying to catalogue the emotion, the feeling, the image, read that I've got in my head. And this particular painting, so that photograph I took, at that time I kind of thought, well, I know I want to create something like a self-portrait of myself, and it being kind of a reflection of a moment in my past, of it could be like hatred or anger or this kind of, and so therefore the photograph is just a stepping stone to creating that piece of that oil painting there that you see. And that's called Two Suns, because I kind of wanted to put these kind of two suns in the background, but also double play in the word. So the sun's being, one, my own son, and me being a son to my father. So the generations of moving forward with. Go for it. Yeah, go.
And so, what determines your color palette in your work? Where does that come from? And you've already mentioned that it's art, it's oil. And to be honest, I really thought that you worked in acrylic. So that's quite interesting for me that you work in oil, because there's a lot of drying time you have to consider, and do you work on 3 or 4 paintings at once because of that? But how do you determine what your color palette's going to be? Because you've got the way that you do the skin with the different tones to it and the different flow obviously generates the movement that you in the hand in particular. It's generating the movement, and in the face. So where do you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to use these colors for this picture? Or is it quite organic?
It's very organic. I guess my palette was always, well, originally my palette was very much kind of umbers, greens, blues, but high contrast, very vibrant sort of colors that I always like to use. And then it kind of started moving forward with regards to the oils and using the oils, the movement of movement of the oils I use as a medium allows me to create that kind of fluidity in the images themselves, whether it be part of the body or wherever it might be. It just does what I want it to do. I have used acrylics and other mediums in the past, but they never quite
you don't get that flow, that same flow.
I end up swearing at canvas or something, but
So, well, that's another good question, actually. So it's canvas. You work on canvas rather than, say, board or anything else.
But I do use board occasionally, not very often. Right. Mostly canvas, predominantly all canvas. So, but there are a few pieces out there, and I do have boards still in my studio that I'm am working on at the moment. But the palette itself is just like the high contrast, high vibrant colors. This is what I really like. So it really kind of I want my paintings to pop out and almost grab you, maybe give you a little shake and
yeah. And
you
I
in.
mean, I've seen these live, and they do absolutely do that. They do jump up, which is why, I came down at when we were both at Truman together. While I walked down the aisle and stood and had a good old chat with you, because
Yeah, I
they
remember.
definitely jump off the wall, and it's very important. We both said this when we were talking earlier, just how important it is to actually talk to the public that are coming by. But I would imagine with your work that people do stop and talk to you because it's just so different.
Yeah, I get a variety of reactions to the work.
Mm.
But I guess the important thing for me as an artist is it always gets a reaction. And
Yeah,
some of that, some of that reaction might be people. I mean, I've had people run, literally cover their. Oh no, I can't look at that. I can't look at this too. It kind of affects them in some strange way. I've had people, stand in front of it, gaze at it, and I go over to talk to them, and I'll turn around, they've got a tear coming down their cheek, sort of thing, because it's resonated or it's hit with them.
yeah.
I've had some people turn around to me. I remember having 2 or 3 people turn around to me at a couple of exhibitions, and they sort of said, "Are you the artist?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have Tourette's?" And that, and
Oh,
this is what,
really?
yeah. Without, and then all of a sudden, I start talking to them, and I notice they're ticking. So they've got Tourette's, they got ticks themselves. You know what I mean? So it's I mean, and again, people who just just fills them with some sort of emotional connection to what they're looking at, and at some point in their life where they've whatever emotion they or whatever memory they have, it's connected with them, which is a
That,
lovely thing to experience.
that's quite amazing, actually. I'm gonna. I've got quite a lot of your work sitting in here. Typically, I can't find the one I particularly wanted, but in the sort of video that I did, there was one in a frame. I really need to add it, so just I will add it because it's quite a interesting, very interesting picture, I think, which was in a frame. Hopefully, I can get it quite quickly, which I can, and it is this one. So let's just bring this up. So what's the thinking behind that exactly?
That was Van Gogh's birthday.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah. I painted it
Oh,
about 3 years ago, I think it was,
yeah.
and it just come up. I mean, every so often I'd like to sort of switch off and don't think certainly in my more recent career, but I've always, I know I went to Amsterdam a few years ago, and I went to the Van Gogh Museum, and it's just I hadn't seen so many Van Goghs. I mean, if you've never been to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, I would advise anyone to go over and check it out. Even if you're not a massive Van Gogh fan, or you are. I mean, but it blew me away. His colours, his strikiness, the contrast, the vibrancy of his work. But anyway, so I've always liked Van Gogh's work. But on that particular, it just popped up on one of my threads. It's Van Gogh's birthday. I thought, let's do him in painting. He might like it. So I've just done a kind of a version of his portrait, and I really enjoyed doing it. It also kind of gives you a bit of insight, because I've never done every so often I kind of I think I've got the lovers on there as well, which are my own version during lockdown, because I thought it was a really relevant painting to do because of lockdown. But with this one, Van Gogh, I just thought it gave me a good insight into his technique and his style, and it came a lot easier than I thought it was going to come. Actually, which it also kind of helps you when you do these kind of paintings. It helps you confront your fears a little bit in terms of whether you can or can't do it. Because if you put someone like Van Gogh on a pedestal, which he should be, and rightly so, and give him all the accolades that our memory of him, or his memory deserves, you could easily sort of say, I'd never be able to do a Van Gogh, just impossible. You'd never be able to get it. But I was really happy with the outcome of that painting when I'd done it. And then somebody, I posted it up and somebody bought it straight away without me even finishing it. So
well, yeah. So that's a very good point. Let me just get rid of. I'll go back to this screen. In the fact that you go on your website, there's quite a lot of sold work on there, which is fantastic. It's exactly what we like to see. Where there's a couple of things I've noticed and seen on your Instagram page quite a bit is that you do like an open studio thing, where you're got people can come and see your work, and your studio's open anyway. People can make an appointment and come and see you, which is what a great idea to be doing that, because obviously it gives people the opportunity to come and see you, talk to you about a picture that they're interested in buying. They can see it in real life. Where would you say the majority of your sales come from?
I would say the majority of my sales come privately.
Yeah.
So that's and I'm not sure how common that is, to be honest. But
no.
So I've done exhibitions, I've done art fairs and shows and solos and stuff. But most of my sales will come just via people seeing my work online, seeing on social media, contacting me, dropping me a DM or emailing me, and going from there. So which is, again, it's not the easiest way to do things, because obviously, we all know that you've got to be a bit careful with regards to the internet and who your people who reach out to you. But I've been lucky. I think I've been fortunate that that the people and the collectors who have come across my work have been. That, it might. Do you know what? It might. Sometimes it might be on the back of a bigger exhibition. I've done a charity piece, a charity down in the Docklands early last year. It's called Paws on the Wharf. It's for Guide Dogs UK, which is a lovely thing to say. But it was slightly left field from what I normally do. They give you a guide dog, and then they ask you to create your artwork on it, and then they exhibit it for a couple of months, and then they sell it on at an auction. So that there was a lot of PR and publicity to go with that. But on the back of that, then obviously I met some wonderful collectors as well, and struck up some new and bought my work. So it's funny how it all comes. But again, they reached out to me directly through my website and directly through an email or a DM.
So you got a few different ones. This being one of them.
Yeah.
And it's still, even though it's different, it's still your style. It's still evidently yours, which is so it. I actually thought there's another example here as well. I actually thought that a lot of your work was almost self-portrait. Actually, that's what I thought when I met you at Truman. I thought a lot of it was self-portrait or inspired that route, but clearly you do quite a lot of other things that are not they're not self-portraits, clearly.
Well, they are in a sense. They are in a sense that even when I'm painting, if I do a portrait of someone else, for example, or like those two paintings that you just showed there, one was called Francesca, and she's that's a homage to an artist who inspired me, or a photographer who inspired me, called Francesca Woodman. And I just really, really loved her work. It really struck a chord with me, and it brought, made me very emotional when I first saw her work. And then the other piece is a portrait of my mum years ago.
This one.
Yeah. But whenever within those paintings, there is still a self-portrait. So there is still, the struggles that I had mentally. There is still a reflection of, my mum was a beautiful woman. She was very rounded. She's very loving. She was so supportive to, I'm the youngest of 7. So she was an incredible inspiration in terms of, human person you can be as the best of humankind sort of thing. But that, if you look at that, if you look at that painting, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's quite brutal in some respects. She's kind of got this, looks like she's got, you know, beaten up a little bit with her eye, etc. But that's because there's me. She for in my eyes, she gave birth to me, and I had to do a little bit of my emotional state in terms of in painting her portrait.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, and you know, I think that one's called The Lady with the Bandaged Arm. I think it's called. I think I called it at the time because. But when I painted that, she had just lost her sister, and she had hurt her arm, and I just caught her when I was round visiting her. I just caught her in a moment of memory, staring into, you know, the side, the side view, the side of drifting off, and I just sat there and I thought, I didn't say anything, so I just watched her, and I thought, what's she thinking about? She's thinking about the past. She's thinking about Mags, her sister. She's thinking about my dad, who we lost years and years before that. And she was, you know, she come from a large Irish family as well, and she was, at that point, she was the last of all her siblings. And it kind of, you know, there's so much more depth to that photo, that painting, than the emotional state of it and what she was thinking. It was a lovely thing to paint.
Yeah, and so she saw it, presumably.
She did see it, and then in a true Irish way, she said, "Jesus, what are you painting that for?" And and I'm like, "Mum, I love it. You know, this is great." You know, so she was quite modest, and she was quite sort of, you know, she didn't like her photograph being taken and stuff. So, but and then that painting now hangs on a you know, collector and someone I've got to know over the years in Italy. So and again,
really?
he reached out to me through Instagram. Actually, that was he DM'd me and we'd seen it. Said, can you yeah, could I buy it?
So again, it's quite difficult to sometimes sit back and really imagine what is going through your mind. I mean, when when I put some of my stuff together, people think I smoke something dodgy, that's for sure. And I think, you know, you could easily, this is what I quite often say about people that are creative. You know, people say to you, "Oh my word, how did you think of that?" And actually, I find it very difficult to explain how that comes about, how my work comes about. You know, so if you'll take this as an example, this picture that we got here. Do you know before you pick your paintbrush up exactly what you're going to paint? Is it because you've got a series of photographs? What makes you take those photographs in the first place to then come up with it? I mean, you've just explained with your mum that, you know, she was looking there, you saw that in her and thought, yeah, I'll take a picture of this, I'll use this. But does that happen every time? Is that your method, or is there a big element of actually, this is what I'm feeling and this is where it's going to go?
So so again, going back to that, born from a memory or born from an emotion that it just pops into my head, or I start thinking about. So I will then I tend to start forming an image in my head of what I want to create. So for example, so I would sort of, like, quite often I'll say to my partner Janet, you know, I'll just be sitting around, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I just sort of say, "Oh, I need to paint something. I need to paint this." And she says, "Oh, okay." And then in my head, I'm kind of saying, "Right, I want it to look like, I need this type of figure, and I need that it moved in that sort of way." Now, I can't take a photograph. If you, as you probably, you know, agree, if you look at most of my paintings, pretty much all of my paintings, you can't take a photograph with the body distorted in the way I present them. You know.
Oh, I don't know. There's some people who take photographs that are really rubbish. Yeah.
So what I tend to do is try and either do a really, you know, like a photograph, or I will, you know, get someone and I'll just sort of, you know, photograph it in disjointed. So I'll photograph the arm first in a position that I quite like it to be. And I'd photograph the head, like moving up, or different parts of the body. And then it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, and I'll try and push them together and form a very loose, that sparks something inside me. And then from there, I tend to start with the human form, very much perfectly normal. And then the painting will take. So I've kind of got the proportions right. I've kind of got, the structure right. And then from the back of that, as I'm painting it, then I'll start distorting it. Because I think if you look at a painting of a body or a figure and it's so distorted, there's a risk that you won't recognize what it is. There's a risk that the viewer won't recognize what it is, and they'll look at it and think, I can't get it. I can't see that. But if you start from a point of realism and then distort it outwards, there's a certain knack to gauging a point where it's going beyond. It's going far too far into abstractism now, and it doesn't. It loses its shape, loses its form. So it's important to try and keep the real. You recognize, So that painting that you're showing there, that essentially is a female figure of leaning back with an arm in the air, sort of thing.
But looks in turmoil. Looks in total turmoil.
Yeah, it is. So that painting was born from. I don't know if you remember. There was I can't remember what it was. There was a case of winkle pickers up in north West England. They were essentially human trafficked in, and then
that's right.
But the bodies were found in the back of a lorry.
Yeah,
which is a really, really dark subject. But it kind of, when I heard about it, I just thought that's the worst of human nature, worst of humankind. I just wanted to try and paint something that reflect that turmoil and that sort of horror. I felt towards it.
It's funny, isn't it? How I love a bit of darkness. I love a bit of putting a bit of darkness into images. And I think it's something. It's also true that darkness does sell. There's no question. There are people who are almost frightened to buy a painting that people will go, Jesus, what's going on with that? You like that? You actually like that? Yeah. And there's a bit. We all, I read a lot of crime novels, crime thrillers, and it's the dark side of that I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, whatever genre of the art world you're in, it does draw you in. But I also I try to, and I hope with my viewers, the people who like my work, that they can see also a beauty within the work, whether that's through the colours, some of the form, the way it is, because we do live in a dark world. And like we are essentially just animals at the end of the day. I mean, and we are in an animal kingdom. We might be top of the food chain, but nevertheless, and we don't always look after each other, sadly, in our world. But so a lot of my emotions, a lot of my thought process, and my thoughts in life is about kind of trying to reflect some of that in life. But also, we've got so much. There's such a lovely core to our world and all creatures in the animal kingdom, including ourselves. So I try to reflect some of that in my practice.
I think it's what I think is also interesting. I mean, this is this one in particular is different to the others. We've got a bird in the middle. But what I particularly like, let's just change that so it's more easy to be seen. What I particularly like is, and you've just 5 minutes ago said it, is you're on the boundary before you push it into abstract. So you've got that the surrealism around it. Everybody can still see what it is, but you've got that. It's a very surreal look to it. If you were to push it a bit further, you'd jump into abstract, and then everybody would go,
lose it too much.
Okay, what is it? Yeah, it's
a fine line. I mean, this
particular painting
is one of the. I mean, I don't do too many commissions, but when I do commissions, it's got to strike a chord with me. And this is somebody asked me, they recently lost their, I think they had lost their mother as well. The woman who asked me to paint this, she really loves birds, and she really loved the kingfishers and stuff. So she asked me, can you paint and I wouldn't. I'm not. Listen, I'm not a nature paint artist or anything like that. As you know the type of artist I am. Abstract surrealism, kind of with a core of realism beliefs and emotions inside it. But this painting was kind of that kind of. It's like that bird breaking out of a past. So if you look carefully on the left-hand side, there's almost like a residue of where the kingfisher's just come from. And that's kind of, so it's kind of breaking through. It's like releasing itself from who it was originally. And I just found that quite a nice way to portray loss or moving on from our life into wherever.
Well, just we've got Lee Churchill, who always watches really, and always has a good comment to say. Has put the fact that while we're talking, it's to promote a response, which is correct. But he's also said he loves the kingfisher, and I've got to agree with him. I do. I love this as well. It's not just the kingfisher. The fact that it's a kingfisher or anything like that, it's also the colours. The colours work so well, which is comes back to my question a while ago about colour palette. It's
but the colour, the palette. I guess some of it, it's that subconscious side to being an artist in that. So if you looked at my growing up, I used to love comics like most kids. I used to love the vibrancy of the colours within comics books and some of the darker art and stuff. And I think that's probably stayed with me as well. Do you know what I mean? Through the years, it's almost the really bold colours.
Yeah, it's they are very cool. There's no question, and it definitely. See, I like the fact that you can look at something like this and you can go away and have a cup of tea or do something else and come back and have another look, and you see something else in it that you think, oh, hold on a second, didn't see that last time. It's it really there's a lot going on. You mentioned the lovers. I've got your website actually up on my other screen, so I will share that because I've got the lovers up, so that's your version of it, and quite funny enough, obviously just above your Van Gogh picture as well, sold in a private collection. So it's quite fascinating. It's a great website, by the way. It's got some fantastic sections of all your work on it, and also gives you an idea of roughly what sort of size you paint at. So what would determine 80 by 60? You got some that are smaller, you got some that are bigger, 90 by 70. Did you gradually start getting bigger with your work? Because I've spoken to quite a few artists, obviously, on this show. Michelle Watson, as an example, paints big images, but that's because that's what she feels like they should be. And then you got other people who don't. They paint little small ones, and what determines your picture size? I mean, while you're talking about that, I'm going to go back to here and bring you up, because there's various pictures on the wall behind you, all different sizes. So what determines your canvas size?
So there's a few factors. One is probably first and foremost is the impact I want to get out of the painting. To make sure I can get the image is big enough or small enough to be able to have that impact on the viewer. But also there is also, as I'm sure a lot of artists have, is the size that you're able to fit in your studio or where you're painting it at the time you're creating it, or what your conditions are. But I've been quite fortunate that although it's not a massive studio compared to some, I create paintings now up to kind of 2 meters square, 3 meters square.
Do you?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to. Yeah. Well, they take a long time though.
So does it actually, when you do that, are you thinking, does it limit your market because someone's got to have somewhere to put it? Or that's, it's a little bit like somebody building a £4 million house. So suddenly he's only got a select few people that can afford it.
Yeah. You know what, Gary? This is one of those questions that I have thought about in the past, long and hard about, and it kind of and I think in recent years I've kind of just gone back to my core and thought, well, who am I painting for? And I'm painting first and foremost. I'm painting for me because that's the honesty of my work is a portrayal of what I want to get over. And if nobody sees it until I'm long gone or whatever, it's fine. Or if nobody sees it ever, I mean, it's fine. But if I like what I painted, I'm proud of it, and I love what the emotion it struck within me, then I'm happy with that. Whatever size, scale it is. There is also, they kind of, the 60 by 80s or the meter squares or 1,000 by 1,000, sorry, 100 by 100 centimeters square canvases. Those kind of sizes. Because it's oil, you kind of you can turn over a few, and I think you asked earlier on about because I use oil, do I paint 2 or 3 at a time, which I do.
Yeah.
You have to, and quite often as well. The other thing I'll do is I'll leave a painting, so I'll get to a point where I think it's finished, or I'm happy with it, how it is, and then I'll just hang it somewhere. Might be in the corridor or on somewhere that I know I'm going to pass by it a number of times a day, and not purposely think about it, but it just catches my eye. And then all of a sudden, it might be like a month, 2 months, 3 months later, I'll just walk past it and I know what's missing, or it'll just something will jump out on me on it, and I'll take it off and I'll bring it back onto the easel and to the studio, and I'll just round it off, and then all of a sudden it comes together, and then so. I tend not to release my artwork unless I'm really 100% happy with it. So I'm always going to paint for myself. I'm not painting for, and when people sort of say to me, Kev, I really like the Kingfisher, or I really like that painting, I really like that. Can you do more of that or more of this? And I'm like, not really, because unless it strikes an emotional memory or a chord with me, that's the only reason I'm going to do it.
Fair enough. And that's, you see, go back to right at the beginning when we started talking, and it was like, when do you think you're an artist? When do you get to that point? That very fact that you just said there does make you an artist, because you're not, in my view, I'll quantify that, because there's going to be loads of people going, oh my God, what has he just said? But my point is that first and foremost, you've got to be doing it because you want to do it. You don't, if you're doing it and turning out pictures so people buy them, and you become a factory, there's no emotion going into your work. You just turn over. Someone says to you, oh, I love that Kingfisher, can you do me another one? Well, no, because that also means that they don't understand that your work is about emotion. They're not grasping that, and so you can't do another one. It's just not, you could do something else that might be in a similar, like a different bird or whatever, but it's got to draw that emotion. And the emotion's already there in that picture that you've created.
And I think if you look back over art history, and the old masters, whether it go back to the Middle Ages or in more sort of modern art, and the past sort of 150 years, the best work of all the big artists over that time have all been where they are painting for themselves. And if you look at Dali's work outside of creating a Chupa Chups kind of logo or something, I mean, and kind of, for want of a better phrase, and some people challenge it, selling him his soul a little bit. His other work was, his earlier work was so powerful. So because he created it for himself, and he created it with people, his families, his wives, his lovers, etc. in mind. Same with Picasso. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. And that, I mean, Lee's just put this up, which is, if you create for others and not yourself, no one will be happy. There's always going to be something wrong from experience. And I think that's also true. There are people who do paint a lot of commissions and it works right for them, but they're creating commissions for people who know what their work is going to be like. It's not, I've just going to bring this one up. It's on your website. This should do it here. Yeah. So what I find fascinating, and I ask a lot of artists the same question, the title of a piece of work is just as important as the work. It's got to, the title's got to be right. So with yours, do you start with that? Is the title there when you're working, or do you go afterwards? Okay, I know what this is going to be.
Yeah, no, I tend to label it afterwards. Titles, for me, titles aren't, you know, do you know what? The annoying thing is, I guess they are important, but they're not the be all and end all for me, you know.
Okay, well, there's a reason for me asking that, because this one's called the truth of a lie, and so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing this here, and okay, because I've seen the title and because I'm looking at what the image is, then for me here's the question. Is this the lie and this is the truth, or is this the lie and this is the truth?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, you little rat bag. Yeah, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's what it's supposed to do. It's generating a conversation about the picture, which is exactly, in my view, that's what art should do. It should generate a conversation.
I painted this painting, and my drive was essentially, as the title kind of says, it was all about, you know, certainly in contemporary life, you know, there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much, you know, within the truth, and who knows what the truth is and not.
Well, that's very true at the moment. That's for sure. I'm going to also, before we go, we've only got a couple of minutes left, haven't we?
That's gone so fast, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm just going to show people your Instagram page as well. Plenty of stuff on there, plenty of work on there for people to see, so they can find you on KMG Artist, at KMG Artist, so they can find you on Instagram, give you a follow. It's the trouble is with all of these things, Instagram, Facebook, all of that, as artists we have to have it, because it's, as you've already also said, it is where people can find us, people can see our work, people can say, oh, actually, I wouldn't mind paying him a visit. You know, on your website, you've got where you're exhibiting. So what's your plans for 2025? What exhibitions have you got planned, or have you not?
I haven't at the moment. There's a couple, there's a kind of a collab that I'm working on with some a couple of really interesting artists and people I've known for a few years, but they've not exhibited out there. One of them has ADHD and is, but he does small samples, fantastic stuff. So I'd like to try and sort of collab with them and maybe do a bit of a show, and also I'd like to get a solo exhibition going at some stage, maybe locally to Cambridgeshire, to try and get my work out here. But I might give Lisa a call, see what's going on with the flux, and get down.
You put your application in. There's just so people know, they can find you on your website. It tells you on there you're in St Neots, so you can, anybody in the area can drop you a message and see if they can pop in and see your work. And Kevin, thanks so much for coming on. I'm glad we had this chat. I've learned a lot again tonight, as usual. It's one of the perks for me doing this, actually, is how much I learn from people. It's been really interesting, and thanks so much for coming on. Really,
Thanks for having me, Gary. Real pleasure.
yeah,
Speak soon.
absolute pleasure. Don't run away. I'll just turn you off. Don't mean that how that sounds, but I'll switch you off, and I'll say wind this up, and then just have a quick chat with you before we go. So nice one. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, man.
So there you go. I did say it was going to be really interesting. Kevin's work is just not like anybody else's, and I love that fact that his work is completely different, and the emotion that's in it as well. Just before we go, just going to put this up one more time. Next week, it's with Glyn Jewis. We're going to be talking about an awful lot of stuff. Not, he's bodybuilder. It's where he started. Now he does what he does. Got a few pictures of him as a bodybuilder he sent me today, and just to show that that's what he did. But this is the kind of work that he does. The picture on the right hand side of the veteran, that's from his 39-45 collection, and he did a whole big series of images from of all the veterans that he went and photographed, did their portraits. And the one on the left actually is the seascape, is where he uses his iPhone to create those pictures. So it's going to be a very interesting talk, and hopefully I will see you for that next week, same time, 7 o'clock Thursday night. And thanks very much for watching.